Jesus asked, "Is it lawful to save lives?" In the gospel today, St. Mark mentioned that Jesus was in the synagogue and there was a man who had a deformed hand. People were waiting to see what Jesus would do. Would he cure the man and break the religious law? At one point, St. Mark said, Jesus looked around at the religious leaders who were watching his every move, hoping to trip him up. And Jesus became sad that these men were so hard-hearted, without compassion for one another, without compassion for a human being who needed healing. Jesus spoke up and asked, "Is it lawful to save lives?" In effect, Jesus was saying, what is more important, the law or saving lives? What is more important, saving lives or the law? Right now, Jesus could be asking us that question. And as followers of Jesus, we ought to be asking that question too. Last weekend, when people gathered for the March for Life in Washington, D.C., there were thousands there to save lives. But elsewhere, there were thousands who wanted existing laws protected that allowed for the destruction of life. In the gospel, it said Jesus looked around with anger and grief at those in the synagogue who were so focused on interpreting their principles that they were willing to deny healing to a man in need. Where do we see this happening today? Do we see it happening today? What do we see happening today? A group of students from a Catholic boys' high school attending the March for Life was held up to scorn when a story first broke about their perceived misbehavior. They had come to the march seeking compassion for a segment of our society that in the minds of many were non-existing, namely the unborn. The thousands who came to witness to life believed that God, who gave life to the man with the withered hand in the synagogue, also gave life to human beings who were never allowed to see the light of day. The youth from the Catholic Boys' High School were subjected to taunts, anti-Catholic rants by some onlookers who were like those men in the synagogue who were ready to accuse Jesus of wrongdoing. Initially, the boys had their detractors, and there were many, but often later on the truth emerged about what truly happened, and they were vindicated. This gospel story is meant for our hearing today. Has what once moved us to compassion grown old so that we no longer stand up for what is right? When Jesus asked the question, "Is it lawful to save lives?" he is addressing us as well. And as a starter, our vision could be to hold the law and love together. And let this be our prayer today, that the law and love will be held together.